What's up, fellow Age Groupies? Welcome to another episode of the Age Groupies Podcast, part of the United WeCast Network. I'm Mike Ergo, and along with my co-host, Lindsay, Hiken, we're here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective. We talk about how to have fun along the way and make the sport a little less intimidating. You all can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join the Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay, Hiken, and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us, agegroupies@gmail.com. If you guys like the show, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or those other places people get podcasts. All right, guys, enjoy the episode. Let's get to it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Age Groupies, and today we have returning guest Eddie Kenney, who is doing the 26 and 52, and so far I believe he's taken down 9 70.3 triathlons.
That's right. Number 9 was in the books last Saturday.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah.
And we'll get into, how you picked the worst year to possibly do this, but since the last time
looking back, I may have changed, but you know what?
Yeah.
It is what it is.
It is what it is, exactly. Yeah. So I think before we get into all that, the last time we talked was in the winter, November, December, before you started all this.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you catch everyone up on what you've been up to in 2020 and how many races you got done and what have been the highs and the lows?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks, Mike and Lindsay, for having me back. It's I really do appreciate it. And yeah, we met and we talked last in, I believe it was the end of November, beginning of December, and I was in full swing of training, dealing with holidays like everybody else is doing, and sure enough, that faithful January 1st at 0600 came about, and it was here in North Carolina. It was about 37 degrees or so, and I was able to knock out number 1, with the exception of the swim. I did the swim in a pool. I was able to do everything else outside, which was what a great start. But boy, was it chilly. And I remember getting done. The time is irrelevant, but it was, a bit over, 6.5 hours or something like that. And I remember getting done with it going, oh my goodness, I have 25 more of these to do this year.
Yeah.
This is insane. At this point, it was freezing. I think I was on the bike. It was, it was in the 30s the whole time on the bike. And I was like, oh, what did I do?
Shit, but, that's a cold ass day.
It was a cold ass day.
Just to explain,
I forgot we can curse on your podcast.
Oh yeah, we can say fuck, shit, everything. That's great. So just to let our less experienced listeners know, so the distances you are doing, you're doing a 1.2 mile swim, a 56 mile bike ride, and a 13.1 mile run all together.
Yeah, all together. And a lot, I get that question all the time going, how many days do you have to do that? Is that something you're doing over the course of a weekend? Over the course of the 2 weeks, are you trying to get that time in? And no, I mean, I'm trying to stay as close to, USAT kind of rules, keeping things in order, doing 1.2 miles. I'm not worried about transition times because, I'm just not. I'll get out of the water, cleaned up and dried off, and hop on my bike and make sure I'm using the restroom and doing all that stuff, unlike a race environment. But which I think that from a physical standpoint, that's actually helped me quite a bit because, on race day in a normal race, you are so amped up about every second count. And going into these and realizing that, I'm not being judged by anybody. Time is a bit irrelevant for a much bigger cause than, putting a medal up on a wall. So taking my time has really kind of given me a bit of a mental edge that frankly I've been able to carry over into the pandemic phase of 26 and 52. Once I realized that, hey, there really isn't a red carpet at the end of each of these Saturdays. In a lot of cases, it's just me,
just you,
finishing on the front porch.
Remind our listeners what you're raising money for and what this is all about.
Yeah. So, in a nutshell, I'm raising funds for an organization out of North Carolina called Canines for Veterans, Canines for Service. They are an organization that rescues dogs from kill shelters, brings them in-house, and then trains them specifically for veterans that are suffering from PTSD and things of that nature. So it's an organization that I came across after researching, there's a number of these across the country, but I came across these folks and had a chance to go down and see the organization there. And from the first time you walk through the door and you meet the trainers and you meet the organizers, the passion that they have for helping our veterans, but then also on the animal side of things, being able to rescue the dogs. Man, you put those two things together, and I was captured. I'm a veteran myself. I did just shy of 21 years in the Air Force, and I've had friends, Mike, I like to call you a friend of mine that have certainly gone and put their boots in the sand and have worked really hard. And I just have seen the impact that a companion or a service animal can bring to somebody's life, and it frankly can turn them around. So I said, you know what? Let's stop racing for individual accolades. Let's stop racing for medals. Not that I don't enjoy them and they hang on the wall like anything else, but let's see if we can put the efforts towards raising some funds for an organization that's doing something bigger than running down an Ironman red carpet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what a good cause. I mean, I'm a huge animal lover and a dog lover, and I love to hear sort of like that redemption story of an animal being thrown away, which is unacceptable in my book, and effectively being thrown away, and then getting that. I mean, because that relationship with the veteran that the dog ultimately ends up with has got to be one of the best, most loving, relationships.
I recall a story I was told when I was down there visiting, and this is quick, but it shows the impact. A veteran was coming down for the week of training. So the dog had gone through his whole program, and now the dog was there to meet his partner. And on night number one, the dog goes to the hotel with the veteran. And on night number one, the veteran, for the first time in over 5 years, had gotten more than 6 hours of sleep in a row. His wife came in and spoke to the directors the next day and said, "My husband's not slept more than 2 to 3 hour increments since he's been back." And on night number one, with that dog curled up in the hotel in a strange environment, this gentleman was able to get 6 hours of straight sleep. And you think about the impact that has on being a dad and being a husband and being able to do those things is just amazing.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
I imagine that the cause, just like, a lot of us who race for a certain cause, helps you get through the tougher segments of the race or the tougher training days.
Yeah. Because, prior to the pandemic and COVID-19 changing our lives, for the time being, I had a great race schedule planned. I'm fortunate that I have a great career, that I've got the ability to take some time off. So I had races that were scheduled all over the country, starting as early as next week. I was supposed to kick off here in North Carolina and then make my way, throughout the year. So it's been challenging to find that drive, find something to motivate. And, every other Saturday I'm getting up and I'm starting, a 70.3. So thinking back to stories like I just told, thinking about, an email or a text message I'm getting from somebody that I've never met, or I met them briefly, like in transition 2 years ago, that are following the story going, "Dude, keep it up. You have no idea what you're doing for me." Mike, we got to ride last weekend together.
Yeah.
We did 56 miles on Zwift with 18 other people.
That was awesome.
That were there just to come together and support, and have that camaraderie. And I'll tell you, as a veteran and as a retiree, don't get me wrong, I love my folks at the bank, but there's a camaraderie that comes with wearing a uniform and putting folks in that group, a lot of which were veterans riding with us the other day. It really is special. So that is driving momentum for every other week to get back in the water and get going.
Well, I was wondering, so out of the 26 that you had planned, say we didn't have COVID.
Yeah.
How many were organized events and how many were going to be on your own?
I had 6 USAT races bought and paid for and on the books, ranging from, like I said, a local one here in North Carolina, Chattanooga 70.3, Augusta, and a few others throughout, Wilmington and things like that. Patriot half up in Williams, up in Virginia. I'm hoping that one stays on. I thought until September that would be great. And then I was doing Lake Placid full, which fingers crossed, it stays on, but I think it's unlikely at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I had 6. Lake Placid was going to count as 2 of my 26. So I've got, those are 6 or 7 events that, you're given that extra amplified boost from just being around a race environment. My coach, Audra Adair with Race Relentless, she was coming out to 3 of my races, and we were racing together, or she was there to Sherpa and be part of it. So I had all that kind of stuff to look forward to as I was putting the plans together. And then, boom, you get hit, you get really just punched in the chest with, a stay-at-home kind of order. And, it's, you got.
But were you going to do the other 20 on your own, or were there going to be, okay.
Well, that was the plan. I do love the company I work for, but I'm not rolling in it. I can't afford to just travel the world for 76 races, or for 26 races. But yeah, and that was part of it. I was also using that, and I'm hoping as some of the home lockdown loosens up a bit. Some of the intent was, I live in North Carolina. I'm only about an hour away from Fayetteville, to get down to Fort Bragg and get some of the guys down there. I know some athletes down there that would be happy to jump on board. So I was going to use these self-directed events to go out to, some communities that have a military presence or a veteran presence, and try and kind of amp it up that way. So I still have faith that some of those things, when the shelter-in-place orders drop and people get a little more comfortable traveling, that I can drive to a few locations and still be self-directed, but have some brothers and sisters in arms running with me.
Mm-hmm. So are you ahead of schedule, or
I am.
Are you just on schedule?
I am on schedule. I have not missed a beat from January 1. I have not missed. I don't want to fib. I don't want to say I haven't missed a day of training. I have missed a day of training before, but I have not missed a single race. Every other weekend, every other Saturday between 06 and 07, I'm typically getting in the water, and then either doing a Zwift ride or riding outside. And fortunately, the weather has gotten nice, and we have a wonderful greenway system around North Carolina, around the Raleigh, Cary, Apex area, that I can get outside and run and really keep social distancing and still be able to do it and not be on that dreaded treadmill.
Yeah, how have you adapted with the swim?
So it's a good question. I was hoping, because we've got a lake. Anybody that's done Raleigh 70.3 when it was in place, there is a lake that's only about 5 miles from my house. Logistically, that gets tough because you got to keep safe. So you got to get somebody out there with a kayak or a paddleboard to be out there with you. And frankly, I just didn't feel it was responsible. There was a lot of stuff. There's too many moving parts with that. So what I decided to do was go on Amazon one day about, I guess it was a Tuesday before my Saturday race. And I bought 5 swim tethers with the hopes that one of them would show up before Saturday morning because,
Yeah.
Amazon delivery times were going to be terrible. And sure enough, 2 out of the 5 showed up in time. And I have a very good friend of mine that has a beautiful, kind of like a grotto type pool in the neighborhood. And I jumped the fence and set it up in the backyard. The pool did not have a heater, so I'm in a wetsuit. I think the pool water was 50, 52, 53 degrees.
Ooh, yeah, that's San Francisco temperatures.
And what I decided to do was go back and look at my average 1.2 mile swim time. And I'm about 40 minutes plus or minus, depending. Augusta with the with the current. I think I did it in 32, but I don't think that's really accurate.
Yeah.
So I go in and I swim tether for 40 minutes, and then I jump out and I get on my bike. That's how I've overcome that. 2 weeks ago, because like I said, the no pool heat, and it was 34 or 35 degrees when I got up in the morning. So the one time I've adjusted, I put the swim at the back end of that day. So I biked, and then I ran, and then I jumped in the water and wrapped it
that
up.
feel.
Yeah. Oh, it was wonderful, because by that time I had just gotten done running, and it was 65 or 70 degrees out, and it felt awesome to get in the water at that point.
Nice.
Yeah, you were ready for it by then.
Oh, you're not kidding.
So what about the fundraising part of this? Like, what's been the adjustments you've had to make there? Because times are tight for a lot of people, but still, you're raising money for a cause you really believe in.
So yeah, and you're right, and I want to be respectful of everybody's dollar. I'm a banker by trade, so a lot of folks are looking at their own bank accounts, and they're, in some cases, they don't know where the consistency of income is going to come from. So that's obviously taken a toll on really getting aggressive with some fundraising projects that I had in place. I mean, I have marketing material ready to go out and kind of spread the word to small and medium-sized, businesses that are always looking for opportunities to share their profits. It's the beauty of our country, and our small business owners is they realize the fabric of where they came from, and they want to give back to the community. And and like I said, you pair veterans and puppies together, and boy, you got a story.
Yeah.
But you just can't do that right now. So, working with the directors at Canines for Veterans, we made an obvious change, of course. We've got to not look at it as a opportunity to take advantage of the great markets that we had for the last 10 years and do that, but really just try and grassroots it and get in touch with people that have a personal connection to, whether it be endurance sports, and they get some kind of excitement, or they kind of see what I'm going and doing, and they go that route. Or you got the veteran communities, and Mike, you and I both know, we're both enlisted, and we know what an E5 with a family of 4, makes. But how many times have you seen that same group of people open up their wallet, to help their brother or sister?
Oh yeah, so without hesitation.
Without hesitation, quicker than anybody. So, and again, it's not to go out and prey on that community, but when that community finds out about what I'm doing, it happens organically. They see it and they go, you know what? We've lived our lives serving outside of ourselves. And to be able to do that, whether that's a nickel and dime, $25, $50 type of donation, I love it. I mean, and those mean a lot to me. Almost, I don't want to say, they mean more to me emotionally than a corporation opening up their charitable checkbook. And don't get me wrong, take that check as fast as anybody for the cause. But in the case of the regular family, husband and wife looking at their tithing or looking at their charitable inclinations and sending funds, that really has meant a lot. So we've really been focusing on that. I do little things. I work with, and I'm part of the Wadi Inc. Hit Squad. So my teammates there are just amazing. A shout out to my brother Brian Amazon. He did gratis work and putting a great design together for some shirts that we have. So if you go to the website and there's a donation of $50 or more, we have a great tech shirt or a nice t-shirt with the 26 and 52. So it's little things. It's almost like the PBS, you get a blanket, for doing it.
Tote bag.
But and I'll wrap with this on that, on the notion of this being such a tough year. 26 and 52, although, the numbers, 26 events in 52 weeks culminating a year, does not have to be a finite period of time. We reset. January 1 next year starts a new 26. I'm not saying I'm going to do 26 again, but, it can take on it can continue to take on a life of its own. So 26 and 52 can almost rebuild and be reborn every year with a new idea around the notion of giving to a cause that's worthy.
I like that, man.
So,
I wanted to ask both you and Mike about fundraising during this interesting time. But one of the things I was just thinking about when you were talking is about how, anyone listening to this podcast or and listening to your story, if you have the ability to give, this is a good cause, because it's helping veterans who may have come back when their service was over and are struggling in some ways as a result of what they went through while they were in the military. And, their ability to earn income going forward and kind of do the transition is probably, this dog is probably going to be a huge positive factor in that. And right now, given our current, situation economically, like anything we can do to help bolster someone who needs to try to move forward is good. I mean, this is part of the greater good to do. So I really, appreciate you doing this. And, but to both of you guys, because both of you guys are raising money, both of you have a incredible why for racing this year. And both of them are veteran focused, which I think is amazing. The plans, and you kind of went over your adjustments, and I was wondering the same about Mike, like the plans that you had for Kona and raising money for Gold Star families, like how has that morphed or changed at this point, or has it, or what are you going through?
Well, I'm still planning on racing Kona until the day they postpone it or cancel it. And then I will be doing it the next year. If it's not 2020, it's 2021. So I was just talking with someone today, and they're like, "Hey, man, I feel bad if you did all that training and then they cancel the race." And I said, "You know what? Worst case scenario is I'm just in really good shape. So
yeah, buddy.
That's okay with me. And I'll put it off for another year. That's fine." But the fundraising, there's some talk of Ironman Foundation requiring us to raise less money. There's nothing concrete yet, but just like everybody, they're trying to figure out what it's like to live in this new world, this COVID-19 world. For me, I haven't been as aggressive with individual people, but I have continued to put it out there. I think what really helped was put it out on Facebook. Now that I can link up my profile with Facebook, just to show people that, yeah, if they're inspired and they want to give, they can. I'm not going to turn away people. And it's that interesting balance between not putting someone on the spot and not guilting someone in to giving you money. And really, they're not giving you money. They should be giving money to a cause because they're inspired by it and want to help it. So it's the balance between asking people to give money and putting it out there so they can have the opportunity to be part of something, be part of a team. And that's how I try to frame it, is like, you guys are part of this team. You're part of this team. And if you want to be part of it and you're inspired, go for it. If not, that's fine. Help me share the word.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I think is interesting about the two different ways that you guys are sort of going about your events. I mean, you're both raising money, and that's, already a challenge. But on the one hand, like Eddie had a few races that are going to get canceled, but they were part of a series that can be replaced with individual, whereas Mike has one big thing that may or may not happen. And so I'm wondering a little bit, Mike, in terms of like, how are you? So you're just acting as if at this point, because you haven't heard otherwise, is that how you're just moving forward with the training? And because with Eddie, he can just pivot and do all individual or whatever, which is not, I mean, I get that that's not like ideal, but it's possible.
Yeah. Lindsay, before Mike answers, I just want to make sure that he knows you're more than welcome, Mike, to come join me for the last 17. So if you don't have an event on the calendar every other weekend, you're more than happy to come join.
Hey, let's get on a Zoom
and then throw in 2 extra and do 19 for C19.
let's get on a conference call with my wife, and if you can convince her, Eddie, I'll be there.
I'll tell you what, I'll trade for a haircut right now.
Well, so I'm training as if it's going to happen, and I'm going to adjust my expectations as the information comes out. But what I don't want to happen is Kona to go on and me not be ready. So either way, I'm going to be ready to race.
Yeah.
And Eddie and I have both, served in the military, him for 16, 17 years more than me, but we are ready for we're ready for anything. You train to be ready, fully knowing that those opportunities or those missions might not happen. So you stand down a lot. And so I'm treating it just like that. And the thing is, I know it's going to happen. It's just whether it's in 2020 or 2021,
Well, I was just going to say that's a really interesting concept that I guess it's from a military perspective, but as a civilian, I like the concept of just being ready.
Yeah.
Just being ready and not, because I haven't found it that hard to adjust to, like that my big race is not going off because I'm kind of like, whatever. I mean, I got sick. And after that point, I was like, I don't even have any fitness now anyway. So who cares? But I've been kind of thinking like, what am I going to do? Like, what is going to motivate me? But I love the idea of like, I'm just ready. I'm just ready to be badass whenever the situation arises. And like, that's actually kind of maybe a way I'll look at the rest of this year. It's like training just to be freaking ready.
Yeah.
And if it goes off, it goes off.
The notion of it, kind of take that just not even from an athletic standpoint, but for the rest, for all aspects of your life. I mean, to walk through, in a haze and then, have to be reactive all the time is kind of a nervous, that's a nervous way of doing things. I would rather be prepared. The notion that Mike was just going to go sit on the couch, if they would have called Kona 2 weeks ago and said, all right, that's it, it's not going to happen. It's not like it was going to stop him from being active and continuing to do those things. So, it is tough though, because you have that goal, we put those things on our calendar, we circle them, we have countdowns and stuff like that. But, it just, when you are, and it sounds maybe a little bit corny, but when you're working for a bigger cause, when you're doing something for outside of yourself that has a ripple effect from people, getting inspired, or just kind of taking notice, it's not an ego thing. It's about, there's a bigger machine than just me and a circle on a calendar day. That keeps me, up and moving.
Well, that's a special thing about these higher purposes, because a very famous book by Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor who survived Auschwitz and went on to become a therapist. He talked about how humanity's primary driver is purpose, like finding purpose and connection. And it's not finding pleasure. Finding pleasure is nice, but finding purpose and connection. So like these are these opportunities, like where Eddie, you and I have like found a way to really feel that vitality, which is, I feel lucky I get to be part of something like this. And I know you do the same.
Yeah, for sure. It would be nice though to have a couple of races out there, because the travel, I mean, I was going out to Oceanside, and, I was going out to volunteer. I was flying out from North Carolina. I wasn't even doing the race.
Yeah.
But to be able to get out there, and again, being part of the Wadi group, having, there was going to be 150 Wadi people there. And so that kind of stuff is a bummer, but it's temporary. We look back, the beauty of the human mind, at least in my opinion here, is we've got some short-term memory. We tend to recover pretty quick. So, you think back, of the things, the most terrible times in our lifetime, things like 9/11 and stuff like that. And certainly not to say that it's not still ingrained in our memory, but the harshness and severity of that day in September and the weeks and months following versus how we feel about it now, we're going to have the same kind of resiliency to these past 8 weeks, even if 8 weeks turns into 8 months. And, Ed's going to be a year older and 2 years older and be able to look back and go, all right, what'd you do during that time? Did you sit back and get lazy and allow the distractions to knock you off track, or did you stay focused? And I'll tell you what, sitting upstairs right now is my 14-year-old son, and he's living a new life right now, homeschool and stuff, but he did his football workout today. He did his run. And I have to think that by him seeing his 46-year-old dad, you know, not making excuses and getting it done, it's helping motivate him. So all these things have a positive. We can choose to focus on the negative, but there's positives happening.
Like looking back on like the ingenuity, looking back on the creative solutions to come up with things, that's some of those are some of the best memories and the best stories later on. You know, the best stories don't come with like, oh, that was so easy. Remember that time where everything worked out? Those are never the best stories. The best stories are how crazy it got.
And I'll say this, when I so right after the birth of my first child, like immediately after, like within seconds, I told the doctor that was in the room, I was like, never doing that again. And because it was just obviously like painful, and you know what I mean? I was like, okay, I have this child, I'm good. And he's like, oh no, that will fade. This memory will fade and you'll forget about how hard it was. And lo and behold, you know, I had a second child. I was like, oh, that's right. I was never going to do this shit again. It hurts so bad.
Yes, exactly.
It's just part of the human, like, this is how we survive, right?
I think, and actually, Lindsay, I think in the podcast where you went over your race report, I think you even mentioned something that when you got done and got your medal and stuff, you're like, okay, I'm going to pause. And then like the next podcast, you were talking about a 50-mile trail run.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, this stuff doesn't, you know.
Oh yeah. I said, I'm never doing another Ironman. As like they handed me the medal and I looked at my coach and I was like, never doing that again. And he was like, okay, just come on. You know what I mean? Like, you're not even out of the pen area. Like we're like, and I'm already like, you know, I kind of want to do Ironman Austria in 2021 if they have it.
Exactly.
Because the pain's already faded. It's only good memories of the challenge, the feeling of overcoming the challenge or reaching the goal. That's all that remains, right? And Mike's so right. If Ironman, for example, was like a walk in the park, we wouldn't even remember it, you know?
It wouldn't be special. Yeah. People won't get the tattoos and wear the shirts. It'd be just like, yeah, everybody's done it.
Hey, I did nothing. I'm going to tattoo on that on my calf.
You know, it's dangerous though, because, you know, you meet people and we've all been around the sport long enough to meet enough people that are filling a void with Ironman and with, you know, this type of training, because it takes up time and it gives them a focus, you know, and Mike knows my whole backstory, and we reviewed it quite a bit in the first one we had done. I got into the sport for very selfish reasons. I got into the sport, you know, to save a marriage, to be somebody at the time I wasn't, you know, just to grab something. And I really had to think about that on whether or not I wanted to continue the sport. And if I was going to continue the sport, was I going to continue it for the right reasons? So, you know, it's interesting. I certainly don't have a friendship with James Lawrence, but we've been in contact, the Iron Cowboy, a few times since my journey has started. And then I remember sitting on my bike trainer watching his 50 Ironman in 50 days in 50 states, going, holy cow, there's something here. And that's not necessarily selfish. That's finding a cause and then attaching it to a sport that we love.
Did you say holy cow or holy shit?
Well, I said holy cow. It's a family environment.
Yeah.
Not on the podcast, but in his own home.
But I will tell you a funny story. I don't think he'd mind me. I don't think he'd mind me saying this. He might not even remember he said it. He and I were texting a little bit. For anybody on the podcast that doesn't know, James Lawrence is the Iron Cowboy. Check him out. Google him. It's fucking ridiculous.
Go to Netflix. Watch the documentary.
Go to Netflix. So he and I had a small little text thread a few weeks back, and he asked me how I was doing, and I said, I'm holding in there, you know, holding a little fatigue, you know, but getting through it. He goes, stop being, I'll paraphrase, stop being a pussy. It's a 70.3 every other weekend. Give me a break. I was like, you know what? The one guy in the world I can't complain to that I'm doing this, I did. And, I was put in check pretty quick.
Hey, speaking of fatigue, I just out of curiosity, can you give us a quick rundown of like, so what is your training like? Do you take a certain number of days off afterward? Like, how is your schedule with that?
That's such a great question, and it's evolving. I mean, you know, I mentioned her name, Audra Adair with Race Relentless. She is, she's my coach. She's my friend. We talk every day, and she's got a background in kind of the physiology and nutrition, and takes a much bigger stance than just the sport. But she's taken it on as a challenge. A lot of her athletes are training for an A race or an A and B race throughout the year. She looked at my challenge and goes, "Oh, this is going to be fun because we're going to have to tweak and twist." Typically, if I do a Saturday, I have a Sunday off. She may have me, go out and kind of slog a mile or two, or get on the bike for 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But typically Sunday, because I do like some family and friend time too. So Sunday is a good day to just sit in your recovery booth and, drink beer. We have a joke. It's champagne Sundays in my house. I have a bottle of champagne, and that's a recovery Sunday after races. But she'll mess with the weeks after that. So we've got 2 full weeks in between. And some weeks she'll give me a really light week on the first week, and then we will build big up until, like the Friday before a Saturday race. She could, theoretically have me running an hour and 15 hour and 20 minutes after a 45-minute bike ride hard. And then the next day I'm doing a 70.3. And then like this past week, it was the opposite. It's been a hard nonstop week. And I suspect, I haven't seen training peaks for next week yet. I suspect next week it'll be a little bit lighter, and we'll kind of gear up almost like it's going to be a true like competitive race environment. Like you would truly, take your taper, like you were going into a competitive race. But sometimes she doesn't really care because we're not doing it for time. I'm not a very strong runner. I currently struggle with that. And she knows I want to work on that. So we do little build intervals for that stuff. So typically 1 day off a week is what I get from that. And then diet is as good as I can get it. I like to eat. I like food. I don't typically eat a lot of processed crap anyway in my diet, but I'm also not the guy that wants a giant green salad with a piece of salmon on top of it 5 days a week either. So somewhere in between there. But I will say that we do some interesting stuff where she'll have me work out in the morning. She'll make specific go, all right, because I typically do a lot of my workouts in the evening, and which a lot of people don't like to do. I don't mind it. But she'll say, okay, tomorrow I want you on your bike and your run done by 8 a.m. and I don't want you to eat until 1:30.
Interesting.
And because she's looking to get, and again, I'm paraphrasing, she's the scientist, I'm not, but she wants the body to start figuring out ways to find the energy. So it'll start attacking, the fats and things that, where if you go and just feed it back immediately, it's gonna go after the low-hanging fruit. But if you go through that, obviously have nutrition while you're training, but once it's done, hold off for a few hours. And that the hangry is a real thing. I mean, so by 1:30, 2 o'clock, I'm ready to go. So we do a lot of stuff like that. But I will say, having the first time I did an Ironman, I didn't have a coach. I bought a book and followed it, and that's what I did. I was married to who's now to a pro, so I was able to knock things off of her. But I was kind of on my own. It's such a difference having a coach that knows you, knows your body, knows your lifestyle, knows the things that are important. I talk about my son. I talk about the other things that are important to me. And having that relationship and her being able to convert that to a training plan that fits, knock on wood, with the exception of just having some 46-year-old aches and pains of being a regular, dad bod kind of guy, I feel good. I haven't had the struggles. So knock on wood, we've still got a long way to go, but I haven't had any injuries or issues yet.
That's awesome. How are you keeping that?
Amazing.
How are you keeping that family balance?
So, my son is with his mom for a week, and then with me for a week full time, and that schedule doesn't change. So it's on my training peaks. Audra knows when Patrick's with me. She realizes that time is more important than anything to me. but he's also old enough where it's okay on Saturday morning. If I get up and I roll out, typically, I'll come back and, he's barely out of bed, and I'm done with my 2.5, 3 hours on the bike or something like that.
Plus, a teenager they lay around. They love to lay around.
And he's an athlete though too. So, we'll do some runs together and things like that. And I love that I can kick his ass still for the time being. But he probably hears me right now. But
isn't that fun? I beat my daughter running, and it's just the best feeling.
So that stuff, Mike, that that family dynamic, you got to stay focused on that. And I do fostering on my own. Probably couldn't hear it, but just off to the side, I fostered dogs. I had my first foster fail, and for anybody that doesn't know what that is, that means you brought a dog in.
Kept the dog.
Yeah, this one, Winston Montgomery, is now part of the Kenney family. So he's hanging over to the side now, but I'll continue to foster. So the balance. Are you
fostering for the same organization? Okay.
No,
because they don't foster, right? They pick specific dogs that are going to be good for
specific dogs that go into their training program.
Okay.
Yeah. They're doing a great thing too. There's down at the Brig, I think it's in Jacksonville, North Carolina. They actually have unfortunately, some of the veterans that have gotten themselves into the Brig are actually doing some of the care for the animals overnight and in between. And right now, while we're on this, crazy times where not everybody's in the training facility, I know they're all hands on deck. How many military metaphors can I put out there? Got to give the Navy guys some
props.
No, but so it's really interesting how they're incorporating, not only are they working for the veterans, but they're incorporating the use of, these guys and these women that have discipline that have been, unfortunately, they're in circumstances that are pretty tough, but they can still serve a purpose. It's pretty cool.
It's almost like the military version of pit bulls and parolees.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, for sure.
I saw that show for the just, on the guide or whatever, and was like, I don't know what that is. And one day I just happened to watch it, and I was like, oh, this is actually really cool. Like, these people are connecting with these animals, and
it'll suck in. It's like those little dodo videos on Instagram. As soon as I see that thing pop up, I'm done. I end up watching it for 3 minutes every day.
Yeah, I got sucked into the show for sure. But just that idea that someone who's in a disciplinary thing or is having some, issues, like, I feel like that unconditional love that animals are so much better at giving than humans are. They teach us that, and the animals teach us that. Like, I can be an asshole. I love that thing I've seen on social media of, like, be the person your dog thinks you are, because they just love you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's about, and for those soldiers that are in the Brig there, it gives them purpose. We're all looking for purpose. Mm-hmm. No matter who you are, you're all looking for purpose. And I'm fortunate that, for all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world right now, I've got a solid purpose sitting in front of me, with family and 26 and 52 and, friends and fostering and all this other stuff. So I'm a happy guy right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to go out. So before we go, Eddie, where can people find you, and how can people help if they are so inspired and so inclined?
Yeah. So the social media stuff, the website is 26, the number is 26in52.com. That's up to date. It's updated pretty well. It's being updated by a banker. So, if you catch a typo here and there, then, cut me some slack. But it's pretty solid. And when this podcast goes on, I'll have a link there. I'll have a link on there as well. Instagram is at 26in52. Each of those things, there's a one-man show. So if you send anything, my address, my phone number, everything's on there. So you can certainly reach out. There's direct links to the donations at the Canines for Veterans site, and it goes right from my site directly to them. As far as ways we can help, so we've been spitballing some ideas. Some friends of mine locally here that are getting inspired by it physically. They want to, a lot of folks want to get into better health, and we've been knocking around the idea of putting together a essentially a 5K in a box kit. Essentially, local communities, when all this lifts and we're still looking for ways to come together and to have purpose and stay, stay fit and have activity. Essentially, we can build a kit that you can launch a local 5K there in your neighborhood and be able to put it in sync with the last 5K on any given Saturday. This gets inspired by when James Lawrence's daughter would run that final couple of miles with him every day. So that's the inspiration behind this, is to perhaps on a Saturday at a given time, people are organizing local 5Ks to do, like I said, those nickel and dime type of donations to the cause. So more to come on that. Obviously, we've got a little time while the social distancing and the shelter in place stuff is in. But I have faith that come the end of the summer into the fall, we're going to be loosened up and be able to come together again.
Yeah, we'll have all the info in the show notes, so everyone can check that out for all the social media and websites you just plugged.
And Mike, what about you? What's up with your fundraising? You want to share that information as well?
Yes, I just hit a big milestone, hit $10,000. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, so I feel like a real big boy now, and I was proud, of things that other people did for me. So, I'm still taking donations from anyone who's willing, and we're gonna have one of our virtual races coming up. So everyone be patient for details on that. The plans to have our triathlon in person live in August 22nd. That's still a go for now. So we shall see.
Yay.
We shall see if that's allowed.
And we'll put a link to your donation page in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
I'll throw this out there. If you get, if there's any of the Age Groupies fans and listeners, anybody that responds, the first, we'll call it the first 3 folks that respond with a question or some interest in 26 and 52, I'll make sure to get a shirt out to them.
Perfect.
Woo!
Perfect.
Free swag, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, free swag. They're nice too. There's a tech shirt and then there's a soft.
The soft shirt is awesome.
Soft t-shirt.
I wear that around. Yeah,
right.
I love it, man. So thank you for that.
I was literally going like, am I eligible? I mean, I'm a host of the show, but does
Lindsay, of course you're eligible.
I'm putting my question together right now.
if I come to visit, I'm gonna take rent on your couch if I ever make it out that way. That'll be
That's fine.
No, of course I'll get one out to you.
Oh no. I meant about the questions. Do not do that. I'm going to donate. I'll go to your site and do it the legit way.
Fair enough.
For sure.
Like
awesome, guys. Well, we did it.
Yeah, Eddie, thanks for being on the show again, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I look forward to coming back. Let's say it maybe number 20.
Yeah.
You have me back?
That sounds good. We will, because that'll be a good place to check back in. So until then, everyone, take care.
Thanks, Lindsay. Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Alrighty, that concludes today's episode of the Age Groupies Podcast with me, Lindsay Hiken, and my co-host, Mike Ergo. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts, as this really helps us get more exposure while we try to grow this little venture. And of course, if you have friends you think might like the show, please be sure to share it with them. But for now, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.